Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Bava Batra Daf Yud Aleph. We're going to begin on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, about 10 lines from the top with the words Tanu Badan. Maseh v'Munbaz Melech. There's a story regarding King Munbaz, Shabiz Beis Eitzroisav, that he plundered the storehouses of Eitzrois, Avois of Mishneh B'Tzaris, as well as that of the four of our Avois in a time of famine. V'Chavru of Echav Veis Aviv, and they gathered up on him. Yarmulu Avosecha Gonzu, your forefathers put all this there. V'Hoisifu al Shul Avoisav, then was added to it. V'Yatam Mevazvazam, and now you're going to take them. Says Rashi, Munbaz Hamelech Bana Bina Shel Hiloni Hamalka Mizera HaChashmanoyim. This gives a little bit of a backdrop of who we're dealing with over here. So Omer Lahem Avoisai Gonzu Amata. My fathers had it on the bottom. Yani and I Ganazti Omala, and I had it on the top. Shnever Emes Me'eretz Titzmach, but Tzedek Mishamayim Nishkov. If you looking down from above, Avoisai Gonzu B'Makam Shahayad Shaletasbo. My fathers put it in a place in which one's hands have control over. Yani ganazti b'makom she'en hayad shaletasbo. Shenemer tzedek mishpat machoyin kisecha avoisai gonzu. Davar she'en oisa peros. They did it in a place which cannot produce fruit. Yani ganazti b'davar she'oisa peros. Shenemer imrit tzadik kitoiv ki prima alehem yochelu. Avoisai gonzu oitzrois mamoin. Yani ganazti oitzros nefashos. My fathers, they were focused on money, but my focus was on the storehouses of soul. Shneimar prit tzadik eitz chayim v'loikeach nefashos, nafshos chacham. So he ended up again taking the chachma and the shamos, which was more important. It says Rashi, af mishamayim nishkaf hatzedek l'shalom gmul. Avoisai gonzu acher b'ani ganazti l'atzmi. They did it for others, did it for myself. Shenemar l'chati at tzedakah. Avoisai gonzu olam hazev yani ganazti olam haba. Shenemar v'holech l'fnecha sidkecha kavod Hashem yasvecha. The honor of Hashem gathered you. Okay. Says Rashi, mochayin kisecha genizasan tachas mochayin kisei. V'makad ever hoisa Paris. V'akeren kayim olam haba. V'aperis oichel b'chayiv. Shenemar ki prima aleim yochelu. Oitzus nefasha, shenem lokech nefasha is nafshas chacham b'haikra. V'im kanam ba beis dira harayu ka'an she'ir. So the Mishnah ended up saying that if you were someone that already bought a house in that city, we don't say you wait 12 months to start contributing. You have to contribute immediately. So masnisin lokar Shem Gamliel. The side of Shem Gamliel oimer im kanam ba karka kolshu. If you bought even a small amount of land, harayu ka'an she'ir. He said elsewhere that it has to be not just a small amount of land, but it has to be enough that is a place which is fit for dwelling. So on this, the answer is okay. Says the next Mishnah. Says Mastitza. Which means it has to be an 8x4 dimension. So when you split it in the middle, each one is still going to have 4x4, and therefore that is the minimal amount. Again, it has to be large enough that it's 9 kabin each. No. Even half the amount, 9 halves, which are 4.5 each. And also, we're not going to divide up a garden. Each one has to have half a kav. Rabbi Akiva Omer base roiva, which is a quarter of a kav each. So again, Rabbi Yehuda requires half. V'los ha terakalin, v'loyes a moiran, v'loyes a shuvach. So first of all, Rashi says this is mini platin. These are different types of palaces. A shuvach is a dovecut. V'los a talis, a garment. V'loes a merchatz. Don't split up these things. A bathhouse. V'loes beis abad, an olive press. V'loes beis a shlochin, this irrigated water field. Ad shehi bahen kedei lezeh kedei lezeh. There has to be enough that each of them will be able to have some benefit. Says Rashi, beis a shlochin. V'toy sheyesh lom ayin since there's a well, and water can go there constantly. If there isn't tisha kabin, zarin by shar zerayin, lafikach afil b'pachas mekan yesh by din chaluka. So when it comes to a beis hashlachim, we don't say it requires the 9 kabin each. Is that clear? This is the general rule of all of this. Kol she'achalei gushmo olav cholkan. Any time in which you would divide it and it still has its utility, it still has its name, then it can be divided because it still can be used. Okay, it's split in half, so instead of it being one whole, it's 2 halves. But if each half still has some utility and it's called whatever that thing is, then it's okay. Otherwise we don't. When do we say that maybe not? If they both don't want. Of course, if they both don't care and they both want to split it anyway, even if it's less, we are going to divide it and that seems pretty obvious. However, Rashi explains this is only mentioned to teach us this seifa, which is right here. You have a kisvei kodesh al shneim roitzim lo yachloiku. When it comes to the kisvei kodesh, the chaf daled svarim, which are all written like a scroll, like a sefer Torah, where it's a ganai to split it up, and therefore, if there's something along those lines, we're not going to divide it. It doesn't mean that they can't sell it and then afterwards be able to keep the money or save the money. Each one will be able to get half. However, they would not be able to physically take the sefer and to split in half because that's a ganai. Says the Gemara, Amar Avasi Amar Rav Yochanan, Arba Amos Amru, that which we said that when you divide something up, that each person has to have 4 amos. That's chutz mishel psachim. That's excluding the door. Says Rashi, Chatzer shel shneim, a courtyard which belongs to both of them. Shnei batim, there's 2 houses which are psuchim l'soicha that open up into this chatzer. L'fnei Pesach, arba amos sar chabayis, and according to each door, it needs 4 amos. It's connected to 4 amos. Hein lefarek masoi mial chamoyroi. In order, if you have a donkey, you want to unload, so you need a certain amount of space to be able to do so. Chutz moisin dalad amos, outside of that dalad amos, sar shehi arba amos was shar tashmishin. So it's not just 4 amos. It also has to be this additional 4 amos, which is enough to be able to unload your animals. Tanimi hachi. Ein cholken es achatzer ad shehi ba shmoina amos lezeh, shmoina amos lezeh. Actually has to be 8, not 4 by 4. I bahanan tanan arba amos lezeh v'arba lezeh. El shemamina kid Rabbi Yasi shemamina. Obviously, it's coming to add. It's not a stira. It's not a machlokis. It's just telling you that when it says 4 by 4, it's for the shar tashmishin, but you have to have the 4 also for the be able to unloading of your donkeys. Some ask this as a stira. It's not. On one hand, the Mishnah says ein cholken es achatzer ad sheba arba amos lezevi arba amos lezeh 4 by 4. But assign shmon amos lezevi shmon amos lezeh. So Rav Asim Rav Yochanan arba amos shamru. When our Mishnah said 4 amos, that's chutz mishel psachim. That's not including the doors. Okay, let's look at question 9. Which is also question TB26. Tani chada in cholken es achatzer ad shehi ba arba amos lezeh v'arba amos lezeh. But tani inach shmoina amos so ma hateretz l'stira zu. So arba amos she'amru b'chatzer chutz mishel psachim. It's not including the doors. Or shmoina amos im dalad amos shulakol pesach. It means for all of the doors. Let's see what I wrote over here. Im koil hadalasois, if you include the doors, shmoina amos. Believe the lasos dalad amos. Okay, good answer. Back in the Gemara. Omar Avuna Chatzer mischalekas l'fi pisacheha. This is a Gemara also in Masechta Sukkah Daf Gimel and Beis, that when we divide up a courtyard, it's divided in accordance to the amount of doorways. So therefore, if you have someone who has more doorways, let's look at Rashi. You have a courtyard. There's 2 houses. One has 2 openings. One only has 1 door. If you want to divide it up, and you want to give 1 to Reuben, 1 to Shimon, the Chatzar will chilek You didn't divide up the chutzner. So in bo lachlik as a chutzner, if you want to divide it up, zeh sheish bo shnei psachim not the shnei chalakim b'chutzner. V'achiv noitel chelak echad. So the one who has 2 doors gets 2/3 of the chutzner, and the one who has 1 door gets 1/3. Rav Chisda Omer noistin arba amos l'chol pesach a pesach. Now all you do is give 4 amos to each door, v'shar cholchem b'sham, but everything else is split 50-50. Tanik mas Rav Chisda. So we have a brayso in support of Rav Chisda. Psachim shebachatzer yesh behen arba amos. So the doors, each one is 4 amos. Let's say one brother has 1 door and the other one has 2. So this guy gets 4. Not that we give him 2/3 of the chutzner. No, all he does is get an extra 4 amos for his second door. Let's say this guy has an opening which is wide 8 amos. Because his doorway is actually a little bit wider, it's 8 amos, so therefore we're going to give him that 8 amos, and then also an additional 4 amos in the chutzner. So arba amos b'chutzner, my viditayu. I don't understand, why should we be giving him these 4? We're already giving him the 8 for the width of the door. So Rabbi Hachikamer, this is what it means. You give him 8 amos for the length of the chutzner, and 4 amos for the width. So therefore, we're dealing with 4x8. Amr Meimer, Hai Pira Desufle, when it comes to, as Rashi says, Misheshlo Chafira, someone who has a pit in the courtyard, in which they put the pits of dates, for animal consumption. So the question is, actually, it's not a question. It's just, the din is that you get 4 amos all around it. The only time we say this is that was not designated an entrance, says Rashi. There was no opening toward this pit. There's just an opening in the house. That would come and go. So therefore, the only time we say that he gets 4 amos l'chol ruach is only where there was no opening that was designated, as we continued off on the base. If let's say there was this opening, says Rashi, let's say there was an opening at the end of his house, next to this pit, and from the house, it was customary that they would actually take the pits of the dates and they would discard it there. So in that case, you only get the 4 amos connected that door, because since that's typically what's going to happen, is that this person is going to be able to be discarding his pits from his house, so therefore he should only get the 4 amos that way and not 4 amos in chol ruach, because typically he's going to be discarding them from his house, so therefore he only gets it daled amos from there. Omer Rav Huna, achsadra, when it comes to an achsadra, says Rashi, sheshlo min ha-pesach ha-chatzer, which has an opening to the courtyard, ein ba daled amos. The din is there is no daled amos that is divided and given for the chatzer. Taimamai, why not? Mishum perik masoy, because the only reason why you would be able to get these 4 amos is to be able to unload packages. Hacha efsher de mile gave, you could bring it inside umefarik and unload right there. So you don't need an extra 4 amos to unload the packages, because you could just do it right into the achsadra itself. So Mesa Rav Sheshes. On this, Rav Sheshes has the kasha. It says beferish that when it comes to shari achsadros, there is dalad amos. So when it says kitan yahi, when do we say that there is dalad amos for an achsadra? Is dafka biachsadra de rav. So achsadra de rav pshita. Well, what are we talking about? If we're talking about achsadra de rav, so let's look in Rashi. First of all, hacha biachsadra kivan. The ain lo defanois, there's no walls. A person can easily just unload it right there. Achsadra Rav, Rashi says, are defanois sabivla. It's a type of achsadra which there are walls. It's just that it's surrounded by windows. So pshita, affect the Gemara, obviously, it's just like a regular room. So then, of course, in that situation, you would be entitled to dalad amos, because the person's not going to bring their donkey and the like into this room, especially it has all these windows. El bachsadra roim yasa. So that wouldn't be a chiddush because it's obvious. But achsadra miyasa, Roman achsadra, which is Rashi says mukafois stefanois nemuchos. They do have walls, but they're low walls shin migias latikra that don't reach the roof. So therefore, the chiddush is in that situation. Also, they're given. They're also given dalad amos. Taruban Beishar Chsadra Marfeses Seish dalad amos. All of these cases, there is dalad amos, which again seems to be a question as what we said before, because Chsadra said in them dalad amos. So again, you can answer it the way we did. Hayu chamisha batim. Let's say there's 5 homes, and they're all psuchim lemirfeses, and they're open up to this marfeses, which is a 2nd-story porch. It says Rashi v'kun oyun derech sulam echad. The only way that they're able to get up is by the same ladder. So they all can get to the 2nd floor of the same ladder. Ein behen el dalad amos bavad. The din is they can only get the dalad amos by the foot of the ladder. So Bomani Rav Yochanan and Rav Yanai. Lul shel tarnagoyim. How about when it comes to a chicken coop? Yesh bo dalad amos or ein bo dalad amos. Time of my. What is the reason why a person is granted the extra dalad amos is mishum perik masoi, to be able to unload your packages. Hacha, when it comes to lul shel tarnagoyim, mitafes v'oyel mitafes v'yarid. These chickens, they climb in and out. Says Rashi, hatarnagoyim mitafes v'toyreach v'oyel derech roish hakoisel toichalul. So they end up going inside anyway. So you don't. You're not granted the dalad amos. Ba'amine Ravam Rav Nachman bias. Let's say you have a house which chetzi mekar v'chetzi v'einu mekar. Half of it is roofed, and half of it is not. So it doesn't really necessarily have an entire view of a typical room in which you would therefore be granted dalad amos. So on this, yesh lo dalad amos in loy dalad amos. If it's half roofed, in lo dalad amos, no. So lo miboy kiryoy mulgav. Certainly, there's no question if the roof, the half of the roof, is on the inner part, the esh the aisle. In that situation, soon the anal can go into the inner part. Gavoy mafarkin, you can just unload it there. Feel kiryav klapi chutz. Even if the roof is on the outside, esh the aisle gavoy mafarik, you can still bring the donkey all the way in. And unload it there. So even though again there's a roof and therefore it's hard for you to be able to unload it because it may interfere, but you just bring it in furthermore where there's no roof, and therefore by doing that you're not going to need the dalad amos to unload it on the outside. Someone from the mavoy shabika shel hachser pischel la mavoy acher. Let's say they are interested in there's one person who is part of many other owners, but this person's house is connected to a mavoy, and he wants to he wants to be able to connect to another mavoy as well. So b'nei mavoy, the 2nd mavoy ma'akvin alav. Question is, can they be ma'akiv and say, listen, I don't want extra foot traffic by you opening up another way to go through our mavoy. Oh, ein makvin olav, or maybe not. So Malay b'nei mavoi makvin olav. Certainly, they are allowed to do so because again, it says it's not something which they want more traffic. So therefore, they can protest. Achsanya lafi b'nei adam mischalekas o lafi psachim mischalekas. When it comes to the army of the king, says Rashi, chayil shel melach hamutal b'nei ir wasis lehem achsanya b'bateim, like quartering. You have to provide for them quarters. The question is, do we calculate how much a person needs to give? Is it based on b'nei adam? Says Rashi, hadar b'bayis. Is it divided by the amount of people that are living in the house, or is mischalekas lefi psachim? Or is it based on the doors? Says Rashi, was zavil sadais for fertilizing fields. Lafisha derech psachim hashlichu sham ad shenasis ashba. So Amalei lafi b'nei adam mischalekas. The din is that when it comes to the army of the king, it's divided according to the amount of people in the house. Tanya mehachi zevel shebachatzer. When it comes to the fertilizer in the courtyard, mischalekas lafi psachim. That is divided in according to the amount of doors. That's what Rashi says here. Was zavel sadais, because you need it in order to be able to fertilize your fields, and therefore, depending on how many doors you're given, so you're given that extra amount of space for that. However, when it comes to Achsanya, when it comes to the army of the king, and the quartering is based on the amount of people. Let's say you have a guy who has a mavoi, and he wants to close up his opening way. It says Rashi, Dalad Amos, to be able to put a wall around his Dalad Amos, Sheishlo, because he has the entitlement to this Dalad Amos. Could he actually build a wall? So B'nai Mavoi Ma'akvin Alav, so the din is that they could be Ma'akiv. Shemar B'lei Henesaderech, because since he's blocking off this part, which he's technically allowed these 4 animals, but that's only for him to be able to unload his things. Doesn't mean he can start building like an outside cage or something, some walls around it, because then all of a sudden people have to circumvent that, which is more difficult. So the people in the Mavoi can protest him from closing it off with walls all around. Meisvei Frechti Gemara. Chamish Chatzeros, let's say you have 5 courtyards, Psuchos L'Mavoi, and the Chatzeros are open to a mavoi. Kulan mishtamshais im hachitzaina. So they're all able to use the outer one because again, let's say it's 3 walls. It's not mafulish. So therefore, because of that, if you're on the inside, you have to walk all the way through to get outside into the Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, everyone is using the outer. Bachitzaina, but the one who is on the outermost, mishtameshes la'atzma, he can only use it for himself. In other words, he can only use the outer space. But he can't go inside because he has no business going inside because it's a dead end anyway, and it's not his property. His property is on the outermost one, going closest to the Rosh Hashanah, to the 4th opening. V'shar mishtamashos imashniya. Everyone else can use the second. Mishniya mishtameshes l'atz mishtameshes imachitzaina. The guy who's on the second can use his as well as the one outside of him. Nimsis panimis mishtameshes la'atzma. The one who's on the innermost can use his own. Umishtameshes im kol achas ve'achas. He can use everyone's as well. So the question is, it seems like if you're on the innermost, well, you should be able to build these walls because no one's allowed to go into that area anyway. So Tanohi, the Sanya Echad b'nei mavoi shebika shel hachzer pischai l'mavoi. Someone who wants to again close it up, acher b'nei mavoi. They could protest. Let's say it was already closed up. He wants to open it up. There, the people there are not able to be ma'akiv because why? He's opening it up, so it seems to be okay. Divi Rabbi Shimon Eliezer Omer Chamish Chatzeros Psuchos L'Mavoi. Let's say you have 5 Chatzeros opening to a Mavoi. Kul Mishtam Shais B'Mavoi Zu Al Imzu. Everyone can use it. So Chatzeros Madach Shemaya. What do you mean? We didn't mention about a courtyard. The words we're missing is what we're supposed to say. So too, not just that, but also in a different case, where there's 5 courtyards open up into a mavoi, they can only use the outer. It's v'chul, as we said before. They can all use it. Says Rashi, b'chol mavoi. Everyone can use the whole mavoi. Even the guy on the outside can use the inside, which means therefore he's not able to just go ahead and start and live in that area and to be able to build walls there, even though he's on the innermost part, because he actually is everyone is able to use it, and therefore that is the machlokas. Okay, question 10. Achsanya chayil shamela chamoto al bnei ha'ir, that they place themselves upon the people of the city. Im lafi bnei adam eschalekas or lafi psachim. So we said it's lafi bnei adam. Zevel shemachatzer im lafi bnei adam eschalek lafi psachim, and that is lafi psachim. Okay, question TA 25. Rav Huna, Chatzer mischalekas lafi pisacheha. Be'eza chaluk ayri. What are we talking about? Rav Chisda, the polig v'sirulei d'rak neged the Pesach noitel v'ashar choltem b'shav. Kam ha'oyrech v'roichev shenais l'Pesach. So this we actually saw on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, and this is the answer to TA 25. Ba'av shechil bat of Levanov. As we said in the Rashi, this is referring to a situation where the father divided up. So let's look at this Rashi. Again, there's two houses. One of them had two doors that open to the chutzner. The second house, in Pasul Chatzar Ella Pesach Echad. There's only one. So the father divided it up. The Nois and Echad L'Ruvain, Benoi, V'Sheni L'Shimon. The Chatzar L'Chilek. He didn't divide up the Chatzar. So in Balachlik, because the Chatzar is Zeshish L'Shnei Pesachim, and it has two doors. Notel Shnei Chalakim, he gets 2/3 in the Chatzar. In V'Achiv Noitel Chel Kechad, he gets 1/3. Okay. So this is what he says. Ba'av shechil batav levanav le'echad shnei pesachim le'echad pesach echad ve'achatzer lo chilek. Noitlin oyrich dad amas b'roichev ha'pesach. So he gets the length, as the Gemara says over here. Hachi kaimer noitel shmeida amos b'oyrich ha'chatzer ve'arba amos b'roichev ha'chatzer. Okay. Let's just see a couple more lines over here on the bottom of Yud Aleph on the base. Omer Mar, Haya Sosum. Let's say the door was closed up already. Ubikish lapoischai, and now he wants to open it up. Says Rashi, Shaylo Mikaidem Pesach Basuachloi. There was a door that was opened, Vesasmai, and it was closed off. Now he wants to open it again, so he should be able to go into that other mavoi. So Ein B'nei Mavoi Ma'akmin Olav. The din is that the people of that mavoi cannot protest because there was once an opening there to go into that mavoi. So it was closed off. So he could have just had it, maybe it could have been remained open, and he was always going to be entitled to be able to go through that mavoi. But the fact is, it was closed off. So what? So now he's able to go through it and open it again. Omer Rav Lo Shanu, the only time we say it's allowed and that the people cannot protest is Elodoloi parts but Betsimov, is only where he did not remove the door frame. Which means, fine. Of a parts as pesimov, if he removes the door frame, in that situation, in that situation they could protest. Says Rashi, kishenistam pischoi, when the opening was closed up, losilik mezuzasoi umashkoif, the lintel and the doorposts were not removed. Therefore, the goli daita the losilik nafshe. Therefore, even though it was closed off, the fact there was a door frame, it was understood that he at any time was going to be able to open it up. But if paratz as pesimov, if it was removed, the door frame, that already gives the impression that it was going to be sealed and remain sealed permanently. And therefore, maybe in that case, the people of the mavi would be able to protest. So it was only originally open. He sealed it. Now he wants to open it again, so he could do so. But again, as we said, it's toloi if we remove the door frame when he closed it off or not. Okay. Tanya, the Messiah, we have a brace in support of this as we continue Beis Amud Aleph. Bias sosum, if you have a closed up house, as Rashi show you, Pesach Chatzer v'sosmai, you had an opening but it was closed off. Yeshul Dalad Amos, you have 4 almos in the division of this Chatzer. Paratz es Petsimov, once you broke off again the doorpost and everything, then Ein Bo Dalad Amos. At that point, no longer you're giving the Dalad Amos because it's clear like you made it into a wall. It no longer has the status of being like a door, and therefore you lose the Dalad Amos. Adkan.